Mel, everybody, I'm Cantonese Cat Mel. Hey everybody, Cantonese Cat here. I do want to show you some of the updates for Bitcoin miners done by the great MSB here. I'm going to try to weigh into in terms of what he's saying. I do want to say his stuff is really, really good. He keeps it very simple. And even though his analysis is not simple, but he's able to use it to illustrate a point in terms of where price action is going to go, where resistance are, whether support. I'm just going to let him play. I'm going to kind of weigh into each one of these minor analysis that he has.
The Bitcoin miners, and I'm going to be reviewing 8 of them today. And I'm going to be using specifically the Gann Square, and I'm going to be using the Ichimoku Cloud only for these analysis. And I will do the weekly chart on all of them. And the first one I will start with is CleanSpark, CLSK. And we can clearly see the resistance of this blue angle up here. It's been, ever since it lost support right here, it's been resistance ever since. So essentially that's the next target. Right now it actually is closing above everything of the Ichimoku, the conversion line, the baseline, and the cloud. And it is essentially trying to close back above this orange angle as well, which it did successfully finally again last week. And if that can continue, then there should be some momentum up to the blue angle up here, up in maybe 25 or 26 or so, depending on time. So that is going to be the next target for CleanSpark. So that would be a nice percentage gain from the current, what's that, 1771 price right now. So let's go.
So that was his thought about CleanSpark. I'm going to basically share with you in terms of my thoughts too. He really uses the weekly Ichimoku Cloud to really illustrate a very, very important point, which is that it's been, first of all, been range bound between the conversion or the Tenkan and the baseline, which is the Kijun, the blue and the red line over here. It's been range bound over here, and it's basically just saying that it's been stuck here in the range, is way above the Ichimoku Cloud, which is basically going to give it a little bit more of a bullish tint, if you will. It's actually a little bit more helpful to illustrate on the monthly using the Ichimoku Cloud in terms of what's going on. And a lot of times when I get on a call with him, I do like to request for Matt to change to the monthly, because I do think that monthly also gives you a lot of confluence in terms of what things are doing. Like you can clearly see that you had a bullish cross over here with the Tenkan and Kijun baseline and conversion line. And price has also really just been stuck in a range underneath the Ichimoku Cloud here on the monthly and above the Tenkan and Kijun or the baseline and conversion line underneath, right? Momentum indicators are basically still leaning a little bit more bullish, it's still greater than 50% whales. So I think most likely it's just a bull flag, most likely going to end up having, some bullish continuation. Now, a couple of levels that he was saying in terms of what he would expect for resistance to hit, he was really talking more about like 25, 26, 27 range. So he used a Gann using a linear scale. So I also tried to reproduce a different Gann using a log scale. And also just looking at the Gann here that I was able to do, it's just not going to be anywhere as good as him. I really strongly recommend you follow Matt, the great Matt Speed, for his Gann charts. They're amazing. But you can see, it's hitting into some potential resistance up here, maybe around the 22 range. This is a 0.5 Fibonacci level. And the next zone of importance resistance is going to be, maybe right around the arc here, which is going to be around 22, which is going to be confluent with this Fibonacci level. But really after that, it's going to be around 26, 27, which is the golden ratio, the 0.618. If you do a linear Fibonacci level retracement level sequence, you're going to see that from the previous cycle top to the cycle bottom, the Fibonacci level retracement is going to be 0.618, which is the golden ratio, is going to be around 26, 27. So I can see that totally being a strong resistance. After it hits that resistance, after it's being done, I do think that most likely you might end up going up to a lot higher levels. And we don't really see the linear scale here for Matt. I would really like to see in terms of what the next angle is. It looks like the next angle is going to be a lot higher, possibly around like the 40s and 50s, which if you think about it, it could be confluent to his previous all-time high up here in terms of, not all-time high, but previous high over here in terms of around 40.6, right? It could be, the angle you can imagine if it hits a lot higher to like the 60s, 70s. Over time, you can even be maybe hitting some of the arcs up here. So I think there's a lot of confluence in terms of the resistance zone he's talking about. So it's pretty interesting to to see his GAN and see what he's saying. So he's going to go to, I believe he's going to go to Mara next.
And Mara is looking kind of similar with the regard of the Ichimoku, except for the fact that the baseline is still up here at 24.14. So that is going to be a resistance zone for that, but it's also still stuck underneath this gray angle right here, which kind of means that this from here, 21.72 up to maybe 24, there's going to be some resistance in this zone here before it's able to break free to the orange angle up above, which currently, if you see in the past, it has been resistance the whole time. Lots of wicks above, right? So essentially that is the next target for me for CLSK is breaking above this angle and this $24 level to get back up to the 28s or 29s or 30s depending on time. And this chart is still holding support of the red angle very nicely. So it's just a matter of time before I believe it breaks one level at a time higher and higher. And
He actually have shown me his log chart as well. That was a leading chart. He was actually able to show me his log chart too. His initial resistance levels currently is, as he mentioned, is a little bit lower. It's around really around the the 20s, maybe even the 30 range, which I can totally see that. If you look at the monthly Ichimoku cloud, currently is stuck in a range. Between the Tenkan and Kijun right here, I think 20.63 has been very, very hard level to get above. 22 has also been a very, very hard level to get above because that's also a very important Fibonacci level, 0.236. So far, it's getting rejected right around from that level, right? So it's just been kind of stuck around there, but you still have bullish momentum. Whales are still in greater than 50%. We're just kind of consolidating sideways. So I do think that is building up a lot of energy, kind of trying to push through the levels above. In terms of what the levels are, if you look at his linear GAN, you're going to think maybe, once he's able to break above this like 20.63, able to break above the 22 range, somewhere around here, then you're really talking about, 30-ish, which is not a surprising thing. Also looking at, the previous rejection over here at the 0.382, that's going to be a very important level over here too, right? But then beyond that, you're really talking about some of the higher levels up here, depending on how time hits. If it ends up taking a few months to get up to 30s, then it might hit the bottom of the Ichimoku cloud over here on the monthly, right? This is a monthly chart. Or if it ends up going up a lot higher, a lot quicker, it might end up hitting like around 40 or so. Bottom of the cloud is around 42. You also have a very important 0.5 Fibonacci level, which is around 43. So 42 to 43 could potentially be a resistance up here, which, per the linear scale chart is not really showing, but he's able to show me his log scale chart too, and that tend to be a pretty important resistance level there. Next time if I collaborate with him, I'm gonna ask him to show his log chart here too. And if you look at my attempt to do it again, I think that it's going to be a pretty strong resistance up here around the 30s to 40s, maybe even like 50. Above that, it could be clear skies ahead to 3 digits, but you really have to break through a lot of resistance levels over here. So those are kind of my thoughts in terms of what the target levels are. So
I believe
I'm going to let him talk about next. He's going to talk about Riot.
And this level.
Yeah. There you go.
And this purple angle is the new support zone. We can see it did lose it a little bit down there, but it regained it, and it's now wicking below multiple times. And finally, it closed back above again this blue conversion line right here of 1023. So this indicates to me that this purple angle has held as support, which would have been a great buying opportunity. And now price should make its way higher up into the lower part of the cloud around $12. And from $12 up to maybe the baseline up here, 1330 or so, this is going to be the new resistance zone. And ultimately, I'd like to see price break the cloud and get back up to the red angle, but that might take some time. So essentially, the support is here around the 960, and the resistance is going to be around $12. So this is the range so far until it's able to break the cloud, which could take some time.
I agree with that totally, and I'm going to show you even more confluence too when it comes to Riot. First of all, whales are not really heated up in yet. They're kind of just kind of hanging out. They're not really quite there just yet, right? You're gonna basically have a hard time breaking through not just the weekly resistance. He was showing you the weekly Ichimoku clouds. Obviously, underneath the clouds, it's also trying to battle the conversion line over here. So a couple resistance you're saying is around 12 to 13.3, right? I want to show you the monthly chart here. It basically tells you a very, very similar story. Instead of showing you the Ichimoku cloud above, it's showing you the red line and blue line above, which is the conversion and the baseline. Guess where they are? Around 12, around 13.3. You're seeing a lot of both on the weekly. These are important levels, and you also see on the monthly here, there are also very important levels. And it's also kind of below, the whole Tenkin and Kijun or baseline and conversion line. You had a bearish cross over here, and you don't really have much whalish momentum coming just yet. I mean, granted, things can change in a hurry. Next thing you know, you can also all of a sudden just hit around 13 or so. I do at 13.3 or so. I do expect it to get rejected right there at that level on the monthly and the, weekly, just because you're basically having spent a long time down here for a few months underneath this, and you're back testing it. It probably won't push through the first round, but it could eventually push through, and when it does, then we talk about higher targets for Riot at that point. Another reason why I think it's very confluent in terms of resistance zone up here around 13.3, 13.5 is because you also have a very important Fibonacci level over here too, from this previous cycle high to the cycle low. You're talking about 13.6 is also a pretty important resistance zone over here. And you might end up hitting the next couple months and hitting the arc over here too, which could also serve as resistance. So we'll see what the reaction is for Riot, but I completely agree with Matt in terms of what he's saying.
And next we're going to do ciphermining, CIFR, and essentially this blue angle was the ultimate support down here, and this cloud has been really good support as well. But now
it's pretty amazing how it got above the cloud and back test the cloud and serve as very, very good support. It's really amazing in terms of how it works.
Seeing something really good here, that price is closing above all the indicators of the Ichimoku here, even the conversion line, which kind of proves to me that price is possibly able to continue higher and higher to the 45-degree angle, which you can see back in time. It was a support zone, but then it flipped it once, twice, 3 times to resistance, right? So this is the next target. And if that continues up for next week, that could eventually be maybe $6, maybe $7, depending on time, right? So this is looking really good for a continuation higher, but we still need to understand that there is a lot of resistance with this angle above. So it could take some time to break above this, but it's good to know that from $5 essentially up to maybe $7, that is a pretty good gain, that there's a possibility for CIFR to continue higher.
We should be upset if it goes from 5 and it get rejected around like 7 or 8. We should get upset about CIFR if it ends up doing that. Probably not. I do see a reason for price to push up a lot higher, and I do see a confluence in terms of what I think could be resistance up around $7. This is the monthly chart, right? I mean, again, very similar to what Matt was saying on the weekly. You see that is really able to kind of break above all the indicators, and you also have a very, very bullish candle over here with a lot of whalish momentum that happened. The key thing is, if you look at the weekly here, where is the next place is going to go once it breaks about this very, very important $5 to $5.50 resistance over here that's been going for a whole year, right? It's been knocking and knocking and knocking and knocking more frequently. I think this area is going to break. It's probably going to go up to the angle where Matt was talking around $7, right? So what's up there around like $7? Well, there are a couple of things. One thing is, if you just look at the I guess not so much the volume shelf. It didn't really show you that. Volume shelf, the next level is really going to be around $10, around where it was like, IPO'd. But you're talking about $7. You're talking about maybe levels between these Fibonacci levels up here around 6.11 and around $8, somewhere around there. And we really don't have much price history between here around 7 until you get to around $7, which is going to be right around this level over here, right? You did span about, maybe a month and a half, 2 months or so around this level. So that could potentially be resistance levels up there too. And once you're able to really break about that resistance, then you're talking about a little bit more, bullish things, or you could hit some of the arcs up here around the teens. With that all said, right, he is showing that the angle up here is the resistance, but to me, I think this horizontal zone over here, and this is more like a log version of the GAN that I drew. I still think that we're at strong resistance over here, a lot of confluence over here. Once we break above, yeah, you can push up. You might get some temporary resistance up here around like $6-7, and you might back test some of the stuff down underneath before going higher. But I do think a lot of energy has been building up over here for the entire year, and once it goes, it might hit some resistance up here that it needs to get over, but it could potentially go a lot higher afterwards. So I do have a position in this, and I agree what he's saying.
And next we have irisenergy, IREN, IREN. And essentially this is the 45-degree angle. And once it broke above, it never really looked back. And what we really see now is this was ultimate support, the blue angle. And what we see currently is it breaking above everything on the Ichimoku. And the cloud is looking really good. It broke through this arc, it broke through that line, and it's breaking through this angle right here. But this giant wick above indicates there's lots of sellers there. So can it sustain this angle, or will it come back down to retest levels? Well, to determine that, let's go to the log scale to see if there's more confluence that this in fact is a resistance zone. So when we go here, we'll go to the log scale version, and what do we see? Well, it is in fact a resistance level. We can see this orange level right here, this orange line all the way across, has been a support ever since it broke free right here, right? It came back and back tested it and so on. But that wick that we saw on linear scale was exactly this blue level right here, around 1415, right? So essentially, this is resistance, right? So will it break above that angle on linear scale that we saw? Maybe not, right? Maybe it needs a little bit more time to break free to continue to the arc above or so on, right? But if next week can close above this blue line up here, then there is a possibility for it to continue into the 17s towards this blue angle up top right here. So we're going to pay attention to that. But if this gets rejected again, then there's a possibility of continuing down and retesting this angle as support into the $9 or $10 range. So we're going to keep an eye on that. But this chart is continuing to make higher highs and higher lows, which is a really bullish market structure. So it's only a matter of time before it does break this level to continue higher. And
yeah, I mean, if you're gonna get into IREN, and if you are really, this is the log version of my GAN. I think it's actually a lot of confluence with what he's drawing, although his blue arc right here is more up here. I'm more having a green arc up here. But yeah, there's a lot of confluence in terms of resistance. I mean, if I just turn off all this junk over here that I drew, if I just put Bollinger Band here, like on the weekly, it's way overextended. It's asking for a correction. You have two big giant green candles way above the upper Bollinger Band. Granted, it could keep going higher next week. It doesn't have to stop. I mean, that's what a parabolic bull trend does, right? Just keeps making very, very impulsive price action and drag the Bollinger Band up along with it. Whales are coming in. So who knows, maybe next week we'll end up hitting around like the 16, 17 range. That's entirely possible. Does it have to? No. Would it be the end of the world if it comes back down and back test some of these supports down here at the Tenkan Kijun or the conversion baseline down here at around $9 or $10? No, it would be completely healthy. It would be a higher low. But for a lot of people, that goes down like 30, 40% could be pretty devastating for them, which it really shouldn't be because these are Bitcoin miners. And if you look at the monthly too, like it's just way above the upper Bollinger Band here on the monthly, right? The upper Bollinger Band right now is around 9.9, like it's essentially is $10. So if it ends up closing the end of the month right around $10, right on the top of the upper Bollinger Band, is that the end of the world? No, it's just basically just overextended. Whales are in. It wants to push price higher over time. But right now, it's just a little bit overextended. It's really not that big of a deal. It ends up going down to $10, form a higher low before going up higher. It's just something to basically consider. Of course, you're gonna have these crazy higher levels that drew up here over time, right? Maybe before the end of 25, it could end up hitting like 20s and 30s. I think it's a possibility that it could end up doing that. It doesn't have to, but it could, right? But it still has a lot of resistance to kind of push above, right? Right now, you're talking about a important Fibonacci level resistance here around 14.6. You're also hitting the arc over here, which is also what Matt was showing too. So presumably, would it be the end of the world to come back and test the 0.382 level around 11.42, or does it would it be the end of the world if it ends up back testing the weekly conversion and baseline up here around $10? All in this $10 zone is also some confluence over here at this wick around here too, right? So would it be the end of the world for it to do that? No. Would it be the end of the world if it comes back down and back tests like $8 range? No, it wouldn't be the end of the world. It'd still be a higher low before bullish continuation, right? So I kind of caution against chasing things right at resistance, but things are looking pretty bullish. So I'm not going to argue against that point. All you need to know is that a lot of really smart traders like Matt, they're going to look for resistance. They're going to try and take profits at where they need to, and they might try and buy back down around like the $11-10 range, maybe even lower, based on what they're seeing on the Ichimoku cloud and based on what they're seeing on the GAN. That's basically the underlying theme here. But the whales are in. I mean, they can always cool down. Don't get me wrong; they can always cool down, even though they're hot, right? But I'm going to give it a benefit of the doubt in terms of the longer term trend, because monthly has really been the trend has just really been heating up. So that doesn't mean that you're not going to get potentially pretty brutal correction and with rotation from IREN to other miners. That can always happen. But anyway, I'm going to let him talk about Bitfarm next, which I think he's very excited about.
Next, we're going to be doing Bitfarms, BITF, and this one we're just going to do on log scale here. And essentially, because this blue level here has been amazing resistance, right? Really strong resistance in the past. So that is going to be our target in the future. And after hitting this blue level, it came back down to retest the orange, even went back down to this 45-degree angle here. And this orange level was some resistance for some time until it broke free right here with this bullish engulfing candle above the angle here and the orange line. And essentially, what do we really see now? It's after it's went above the arc and back tested the bottom. And once again, it's now finally breaking free of the arc and this angle again. So it's looking like this angle will be support now, and the arc is going to be support now, which kind of means that the direction it really wants to go is up, up, up to this next arc around $5, and even above back to the blue level around $7. So the next target will be probably $5 to $7 in the future. So this chart is looking really good for a continuation, as long as this angle holds and this arc holds. So we're going to keep an eye on that.
Yeah, I'm going to pull up the Bitfarm charts over here too. The very important thing that he was talking about around $5 to $7. This is the monthly chart for Bitfarms. Is able to break above the monthly baseline and the conversion line, right? So which means that most likely going to end up having some bullish continuation up. You're looking at the monthly Ichimoku cloud. Where's the next resistance level? Well, it's going to be around $5, right around here. This is one of the leading span lines. It basically is just basically showing you this is probably going to be the formation at the bottom of the Ichimoku cloud, right? So that's going to be resistance right around $5. If it ends up going up, over the next couple of months, that's probably where it's going to end up landing. Could it go up to $7? Certainly, that's certainly a possibility. Whales are heating up, so it's also kind of breaking into all of these, indicators over here on the weekly. He was already showing you like it's breaking about all these indicators over here too. Kind of find some pretty decent support here on the weekly Ichimoku cloud. Looks like it wants to go up higher. So the targets in terms of what I think it would end up potentially doing, I'm going to pull it back on the monthly. I'm going to turn on the Ichimoku cloud. I'm going to show you the levels over here, right? I'm also going to show you the version of GAN that I drew that looks different from Matt's. Again, I'm going to trust his GAN a lot more than mine because I'm more just experimenting with GAN here. But you're really talking about potentially hitting around the $5 range up here, or even $6, $7, which is to me kind of confluent in terms of what he's saying too. There's an arc up here. There's also a horizontal zone right here around $7, So I can see it potentially being pretty strong resistance up here. But before that, maybe $5 around the zero point 0.5 Fibonacci level could also be an important resistance zone over here. So probably around like $6 to $7 could be pretty strong resistance zone over here. But I do think Bitfarm wants to break through. It got rejected previously around the 0.382 here, so you might end up getting a little bit of rejection over there first before going higher. But it looks like it wants to go higher based on looking at this. So thank you, Riot, for buying Bitfarms. I'm going to let Matt keep talking about the next one here.
And the next one is WULF TeraWulf. So this is the 45-degree angle right here. It was support, lost support, came up, rejected once, and now it's getting rejected again twice as resistance. So the ultimate support was this red angle down here, then this orange angle came back and was support. And now the Ichimoku cloud is flipping green right here, and also it's above everything, which is making it 100% bullish. So it's a good indicator that it could continue higher, but we need to understand that this is a resistance angle, and it's a pretty strong one. So will it continue and break above next week? It's only time will tell, but since it was resistance last week because it wicked above and closed below, that kind of indicates to me that it could come back down to the lower threes and retest maybe the conversion line around 301. That is a possibility to look out for. So we're going to keep an eye on that. But if next week can close above this angle, there could be a really good explosive move higher and higher, and ultimately to this orange level above, which is around $8. So that's the target really I'm looking for. But this 45-degree angle needs to break first. And
it's always tough to, how do you say that? It's always tough to think about it when you're right at important resistance and you are trying to figure out what it's going to do next, whether or not you chase momentum right at resistance, whether or not it's going to break through. I mean, whales are in on the monthly and on the weekly. Like, the whales are very, very strong. So I can totally see things getting more bullish from here. The only problem is, again, price is just kind of way outside the weekly upper Bollinger Band. So is it going to be a bad thing if it ends up coming back to like 3.2 to the top of the Bollinger Band to close, or that close to the Bollinger Band down here? No, it would be completely healthy to form a higher low. Same thing here for the monthly Bollinger Band. The upper Bollinger Band is 3.36, so presumably if it gets rejected over here at the horizontal zone, which you can see is a pretty strong horizontal zone, even dating back over here to before it was really a minor back in 2020, you can see that it's a pretty strong resistance zone over here and right resistance. So presumably, which you really end up, here's another, volume shelf where it tells you that that's resistance, right? So would you presumably want to just get too bullish and just buy right here because you see momentum? Or could you be potentially buying some of the back tests on the lower levels down here around 3.1, 3.2? Hard to say. I mean, I think I don't have to worry about that because I've been buying down here, so I don't have to worry about that anymore. That's the problem with trying to figure out. But if you're going to try to trade these moves, I think smart people like Matt has sniffed out, hey, we're at important resistance. Things are getting a little bit overextended here on the monthly and the weekly. I know that the bull trend probably would continue, but we're at a pretty important angle resistance. So maybe I try to just sell and try to buy back down a little bit lower down here. We'll see, right? Am I going to try to trade this move? No. I mean, it's been consolidating over here for like a whole year. It could end up breaking out, and it could end up going to like $6, $7, $8. You never know. Like, Bitcoin is looking pretty decent this weekend so far. I mean, granted, it could be one of those like pump weekend and just goes down whenever market opens on Monday, just kind of get back to where it was on Friday when it closed. That's certainly a possibility, but I mean, I wouldn't necessarily try to trade these like smaller moves, but I can see people doing it. So if you end up buying here, there might be a little bit of a short-term pain if it ends up dropping like 20, 30%, which is an entirely possibility. If you buy here, you might have to take into consideration that might happen. But if you don't end up buying here and it ends up just going up, there's also a risk, right? Like, you might be missing a lot of upside risks here too. So it's not a good spot to be if you want to enter and try to find entry. If you end up getting some FOMO here, it's not a good spot to be. But I don't have anything else to say about that. I'm going to let him talk about his last one here.
And the last one here we have is HUT. Hut 8 port, and the ultimate support was this purple angle here. And now we're reaching the resistance of the red angle, which is wicked above but closed below, which indicates that this is strong resistance. And even above, there's the baseline up there at 1230. So from this range to 1230, there's probably going to be a lot of resistance. So this is not a chart I really want to be buying because I don't like to buy resistance. So if price did come back down to the conversion line down here in the 9s, that would probably be a good buying opportunity. But in this zone, there's a lot of confluence with the angle, the conversion line, the cloud. Everything around here is showing a strong resistance. So for me, I like to buy charts that look a little bit more bullish than this. So this is just a wait and see chart for me. And eventually, once it starts to break above this angle and this cloud, then it can go back to test this orange angle, which has been resistance in the past, right? So that could take a lot of time. But in the meantime, we're just going to wait and see if it can break above this resistance and the cloud. But there's the review of the charts. There's some that are really breaking out. There's some that are not breaking out at all.
Yeah, so I completely agree with what his assessment of Hut as well. I think it's kind of in a zone where it is a little bit tricky. If you don't need any fancy indicators. I mean, you just look at the horizontal zone over here. It got previously rejected around like 11 or 12 range, right? So it's a pretty important level if you dates back over here around 2023, even around 2022. Like this zone over here is a very, very important resistance level that's been going for a very, very long time, right? So you don't really need anything fancy to tell you that. And I agree with a lot of the resistance up here on the weekly Ichimoku cloud, and even on the monthly Ichimoku cloud, there's a lot of confluence in terms of resistance around like 11 to 12 bucks. So it's underneath resistance, even though there's a little slightly increase in well activity coming in. I'm still a little bit wary about it. There's an entire possibility where things just got rejected over here, the horizontal zone, and kind of come back and back test. The 20-month moving average is going to be around 10 bucks. That's entirely possible. It can even go lower to like $9 or something like that, right? Which Matt has alluded to. So I'm probably going to leave HUD alone because it just looks like there's a lot of strong resistance here. So very good stuff. I mean, I strongly recommend, if you don't already have this subscribe to this great Masby channel at TGM Trading. And he also has on X, goes by Matt Hughes 13 is his handle. So I strongly want him to get to like 1,000 subscribers, and I really do want to continue collaborations with him. I guess I'm kind of hijacking this video to kind of do a collaboration without his consent, which is, something that I might end up doing in the future if I really see something great that I want to talk about, that I want to really try to promote. We'll see. I'm happy to continue to share my thoughts on miners here too, but I just want to let you know that there's somebody else who's also tracking them that you should follow. Anyway, take care. Bye.